Evelyn Couch had locked herself in her sewing room and was eating a second pint of Baskin-Robbins chocolate chip ice cream and staring at the table, piled high with the barrick sewing patterns she had not touched since the day she had bought them in a fit of good intentions. Ed was in his den, busy watching his football game, and that was fine with her because lately he always looked at her whenever she had anything fattening to eat, and said in mock surprise, "Is that on your diet?" She had lied to the boy at Baskin-Robbins. She told him the ice cream was for a party for her grandchildren. She didn't ever had grandchildren. Evelyn was 48 years old, and she had gotten lost somewhere along the way. Things had changed so fast. While she had been raising the required 2 children, a boy for him and a girl for me, the world had become a different place, a place she didn't know at all. She didn't get the jokes anymore. They all seemed so mean, and she was still shocked at the language. Here she was at her age, and she'd never said the F word. So she mostly watched old movies and reruns of the Lucy Show. When the Vietnam War was going on, she'd believed what Ed had told her, that it was a good and a necessary war, and that anyone against it was a communist. But then, much later, when she finally decided that it may not have been such a good war, Jane Fonda had already moved on to her exercise class, and nobody cared what Evelyn thought. Anyway, she still held a grudge against Jane Fonda, and wished she'd get off TV and stop slinging her skinny legs around all the time. Not that Evelyn hadn't tried along the way. She had tried to raise her son to be sensitive, but Ed had scared her so bad. Telling her that he would turn out to be a queer, she had backed off and lost contact with him, even though her son seemed like a stranger to her. Both her children had passed her by. Her daughter, Janice, had known more about sex at 15 than Evelyn did at this very minute. Something had gone wrong. When she was in high school, things had been so simple. There were the good girls and the bad girls, and everyone knew who was who. You were either a member of the in-group or you were not. Evelyn had been in the Golden Circle, a cheerleader. She had not known the name of one person who was in the high school band, or the boys in the patched pants and their girlfriends with the neon see-through blouses and ankle bracelets. Her crowd had been the crew cut, button-down madras shirt and pressed khakis for boys, and sheep's-shorn blouses with circus pins for girls set. She and her girlfriend smoked one canned cigarette at their sorority meetings, and at a pajama party they maybe had a beer, but that was it. No petting below the neck. Later, she had felt like a fool going with her daughter to get her fitted for a diaphragm. Evelyn had waited until her wedding night. And what a shock. Nobody had told her how much it would hurt. She still didn't enjoy sex. Every time she would start to relax, the bad girl image would pop into her head. She had been a good girl and always acted like a lady, never raised her voice, always deferred to everybody and everything. She had assumed that somewhere down the line there would be a reward for that, a prize. But when her daughter had asked her if she'd ever had asked with everyone but her husband, and she'd answered, "No, of course not," her daughter's reply had been, "Oh, mother, how dumb. You don't even know if he's any good or not. How awful." It was true, she didn't know, so in the long run it didn't matter at all if you had been good or not. The girls in high school who had gone all the way had not wound up living in back alleys in shame and disgrace. Like she thought then wound up happily or unhappily married, just like the rest of them. So all that struggled to stay pure, the fear of being touched, the fear of driving a boy mad with passion by any gesture, and the ultimate fear, getting pregnant, all that wasted energy was for nothing. Now movie stars were having children out of wedlock by the carload, and naming their names like Moonbeam or Sunfeather. And what was the reward for staying sober? She had always heard there was nothing worse than a woman drunk, and she never allowed herself more than one whiskey sour. Now, all the best people were whizzing into the Betty Ford Center, getting their pictures made, and having lots of parties thrown for them when they came out. She often wondered if Betty would take people who needed to lose 25 pounds. Her daughter had given her a puff for marijuana cigarette once, but after all the hot pass on the counter started walking toward her, she got scared and never tried it again, so dope was out. Evelyn wondered where her group was, the place where she fit in. About 10 years ago, when Ed had started seeing a woman he worked with down at the insurance company, she had attended a group called the Complete Woman to try and save her marriage. She wasn't sure she loved Ed all that much, but she loved him just enough to not want to lose him. Besides, what would she do? She had lived with him as long as she had lived with her parents. The organization believed that women could find complete happiness if they, in turn, would dedicate their entire lives to just making their men happy. Their leader had informed them that all the rich and successful career women out there who appeared to be so happy were, in reality, terribly lonely and miserable and secretly envied them their happy Christian homes. It was strange to imagine that Barbara Walls might want to give it all up for Ed Coach, but Evelyn tried her hardest. Of course, even though she was not religious, it was a comfort to know that the Bible backed her up in being a doormat. Hadn't the Apostle Sir Paul said for women not to power over the man but to be in silence? So, hoping she was on the right track, she started up the ladder on the 10 steps to complete happiness. She tried step number 1 and met Ed at the front door loop, wrapping in saran wrap, but Ed had been horrified. He'd jumped inside the house and slammed the door. Jesus Christ, Evelyn, what if I had been the paper boy? Have you gone insane? So she never tried step number 2, going to his office dressed as a prostitute. But pretty soon, the group leader, Nadine Fingerhut, got a divorce and had to go to work. So the group just sort of fizzled out. Then after a while, Ed stopped seeing that woman and things settled down. Later on, still looking, she had tried to get involved with the women's community center. She lacked what then stood for, but secretly wished them would wear just a little lipstick and shave their necks. She had been the only one in the room in full makeup, wearing pantyhose and earrings. She had wanted to belong, but when the woman suggested that next week they bring a mirror so they could all study their vaginas, she never went back. Ed said that those women were nothing but a bunch of frustrated old maids and too ugly to get a man anyway. So there she was, too bored for tumbleware parties and too scared to look at her own vagina. The night she and Ed went to their 13th high school reunion. She had been hoping she'd find someone to talk to about what she was feeling, but all the other women there were just as confused as she was, and held on to their husbands and their drinks to keep themselves from disappearing. Their generation seemed to be on a fence, not knowing which way to jump. After the reunion, she would sit for hours looking at all her school pictures, and she began to drive by the places where she used to live over and over. And there was no help. Lately, he had started acting more and more like his daddy, trying to behave like he thought the man of the house should. He had become more closed off as the years went by, and on Saturdays he would wander around the home improvement center alone for hours looking for something, but he didn't know what. He hunted and fished and watched his football games like the other men, but she began to suspect that he, too, was just playing a part. Evelyn stared into the empty ice cream cartoon and wondered where the smiling girl in the school pictures had gone.